Oh man, I might have to quit recording, going on Twitter, and even thinking about all this because honestly, there are too many stupid people. When I say stupid people, it's also smart people because there's a lot of smart people that are really stupid. There's a lot of research done around this. The expert fallacy, there's people that are actually really good at convincing themselves that what they think they know is truth. And then they're good at performing mental gymnastics. So they pretty much sniff their own farts and believe their own bullshit. Like that's a big problem. And anybody that has a profession, epidemiologist, scientist, whatever, gets grant money from a college or from the state or whatever, they're incentivized to ignore disconfirming evidence that might contradict the narrative or contradict what the big food companies or big pharma companies or the state wants them to find in their research and studies. And that's a whole topic itself. But then you just have stupid people that don't want to believe that the other side of the political spectrum might have a point. They don't want to believe that their ideas about things like economics and open borders or closed borders, or even the worst, like price fixing and things like that, they don't want facts. I'm actually reading a book called, what is it called? It's like The Rational Voter Myth or something like that. And the basic premise of the book is that people vote like they're religious about politics, where with religion, it's faith-based. So you believe in something regardless of all the empiricism around you. Regardless of the fact that you've never seen God or seen devils or any of these things ever in your entire life. Nobody has ever, and it's never been documented. But you have a faith to that. And I respect that. That's fine. You know, as long as it doesn't result in killing someone, suicide bombing, and slaughtering Protestants or Catholics or whatever, which has happened a lot throughout history. And you still have religious-based wars and geopolitical things going on to this day. So yeah, that's obviously gross. But if you're just practicing religion on your own and that's your thing, you want to believe it, that's fine. Do it. But people vote the same way that people that are religious believe in their faith. It's not about empiricism. It's not about tracking whether things work or don't work or having experiments, right? It's about voting a certain way regardless. Now let's just think about that a second. The way most people vote is they vote along some kind of ideology. It's usually a party line. So if you're blue or Democrat, you're this. If you're Republican, you're that, whatever. Most people vote that way. If you voted that way and you were a starch constitutionalist or whatever they call somebody who believes in the foundational natural rights, which for me, if I have to label it, I would say I'm a anarcho-capitalist because I believe in free market and capitalism, but I believe in no state. More of an agorist. I'd be a libertarian if I had to be. But even within all of those different labels and boxes, you have these certain ideas about things. And you adhere to those ideas. Like there is so much research, so many books, so many just obvious empirical data points of how this works on just like Twitter and social media. The reason it's a big echo chamber. The reason nobody ever changes their mind, right? There's so much information. There's also just straight up anthropology, evolutionary biology, and psychology, understanding how humans work. We know this. You probably know it in your relationships, in your friends and family, and political debates you've had about whatever. You've seen that people don't change their mind. And when they do, if they ever happen to change their mind and come around to your perspective, it's likely years later. In fact, one example of Allison, a friend of hers, used to be vegan. And she would actually, they had a rift about it because Allison would post things about an ancestrally based diet, which included eating healthy animals. And her friend would kind of come at her and they'd go get into it a little bit here and there. And then they kind of like had a falling out. They didn't really talk that much anymore. And then over time, this person was trying to get pregnant and she couldn't get pregnant. So they started introducing cheese and eggs and then I think eventually meat and things like that. And then she got pregnant. And now she speaks out about veganism. And that's a beautiful thing to see. That is the growth and evolution of a human, more particularly the evolution of a mind, which is the most miraculous thing because that's what's responsible for every amazing thing that we have on earth right now. The mind and its ability to grow and learn and adapt and evolve is why we're here, is why I have this mic in front of me and this screen in front of me. You're listening to me from, who knows, thousands of miles away, potentially on your own schedule. It's amazing. The technology we have is utterly amazing. It is not without pitfalls, as we know, but it is amazing and it is empowering. And it's going to democratize humanity and it's going to remove power from tyrants in states that want to control and use their citizens as cattle. It's going to take a lot of time to get there. Bitcoin's very, very integral to that. But that is made possible because we have these peer-to-peer networks and all this technology. So it is all amazing thing. But this does not change the problem of democracy and two-party systems. Voting because someone goes on a podium and they happen to be in your party and you like the way they look and you like the way they speak. In fact, here's a good one. Based on brief exposure to photographs and without any political context, and about 70% of the races for senator, congressman, and governor, the election winner was the candidate whose face had earned a higher rating of competence. If their face looked like they were more competent, they're more likely to win. Another example of this, it was kind of a meme that went around. There was this good-looking dude, like a model dude, but he was a criminal, like a couple face tats, but he was a good-looking dude. He got a shorter sentence than someone else that committed like a similar crime. I think he like got a very light sentence actually, because the meme goes, he was good looking. This shit happens. We've understood this. We know this. This is human nature again. We like things that we're attracted to, and we are repelled from things that we aren't. Makes a lot of sense, but it also applies to ideas. If we perceive a liberal as, honestly, I've fallen into this trap because I believe at this point, no, I can't say I believe because I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong, but my mind wants to go to that place where I think that all liberals are state morons that don't understand history. They don't understand the state. And honestly, a lot of that's true, because if you're a liberal and you don't understand these things, you're just ignorant, I guess, but it doesn't mean you're an idiot. Like, again, this is very dicey. Like, it's easy to make blanket statements and say all liberals are idiots, but it's probably more compassionate to say all liberals are misinformed. All liberals are Democrats are not idiots. Now, the politicians, I believe, are, because they're just playing a part and they're trying to get power and money for themselves. That's just gross. And that's true really of all politicians, but at least some are more respecting of the Constitution. And I find those people on the right, they just tend to be on the right. I don't know why it is. Like, the Liberal Party has swung so far left that they just don't care about the Constitution or rights. They just think everything should be done in the name of safety, and the state should control everything, even when the state fucks everything up. And that's their belief system. That's their religion, you could say. Now, I'm pretty sure my mom voted liberal on this last election. I didn't vote at all. I've never voted. I will never vote. But the discussions in our household were centered around how you cannot vote for that fool. And I was right. We were right. Anybody that said you're going to regret getting Biden, we were right. But again, who cares? It's a political system. It's a game. It's broken. It's corrupt. It doesn't matter who's going to really be there. They're going to play the game and it's going to be broken. So like, you can always take that with a grain of salt. But even with like multiple discussions where we were talking about this, and she mostly just listened. She doesn't really like get into it. She voted that way, and I didn't ask her. Allison did. And I believe she said, oh, you know who I voted? I always vote Democrat. She made some comment like that. And that's another example. That's, for a lot of people, what they do. It doesn't really matter what's going on. They have a party, which is, you could say, like their religion, whether it's Episcopalian or Catholicism or whatever. And then they listen to or support whoever the priest happens to be, or it's a pretty apt analogy. It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter what they're promising. It doesn't matter campaign stuff. It doesn't matter speeches, debates, whatever. It doesn't matter. You vote a certain way, and whatever you hear out of the people that are on your team, your party, you just do your best to like agree. And even when they say things that you don't agree with, you kind of let that go in one ear out the other. This is confirmation bias 101, very well understood. And that's the way most people vote. They vote from an ideology. They vote based on like what's going on right now, who can appeal to them the most, whether those things ever work. They don't have an understanding of economics. That's a big one. The book I'm reading about, the myth of the rational voter, is very much about economics and how most average people have no clue how the market works, capitalism works, free markets work. They think profit is bad. They blame the rich. And that one gets to me the most as someone who's entrepreneur from scratch, built it the hard freaking way. Like, it's no freaking joke. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur and risk your capital and you're going to build something and nobody's going to pay you back or take care of you or save you, you understand that there has to be a big reward to take that risk. And that's fundamentally what the entire market's about. And then the market's also about, well, that's entrepreneurialism. That's more entrepreneurialism. But what the market is about giving people what they want and they pay you in exchange. It's a quid pro quo. It's I will pay this for this product or service because I value it at that price. And if you deliver that to me, I will keep buying from you, et cetera, et cetera. And competition, what it does is it brings prices down and quality up. It makes the world a better place. Everything around you is a result of capitalism, free markets. Period, full stop. And those that get rich in this paradigm, whether it's a Jeff Bezos or a Musk or whatever, I'm not talking about like a Russian oligarch where a tyrant comes in or a dictator comes in and then gives them a monopoly and they make money that way. Like, there's a lot of really shitty ways to make money. And just because you're rich doesn't mean you made it in any certain way. But for those people that generated wealth in a marketplace by giving people what they want, again, not accounting for things like big pharma, which is very government. They're basically in bed with government because they write laws that protect pharma and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's an entire and utter joke. And there's not actually a free market there, which is why it's so freaking broken and so freaking expensive. But in a free market where you build something like Amazon, or SpaceX or Tesla or whatever, because you give products and services to people at a price that they will pay. They want those products and services from you. And you make money because you do that, because you bring more value to more people than someone else. You should be rewarded for that, because that means the system is working. And if you don't have that system where you have property and the ability to become rich by giving value to people, then you will not have prosperity. You will have worse of everything. Period. Full stop. That's a market. And most voters have no clue how markets work. And really, most of politics is an economic discussion. All the other stuff is like obfuscation on top, really. I could go on and on about this. I'll be sharing more about the problems of democracy. There's just a few quotes here. So, time paradox. And I should remind you, I'm doing a daily show. Well, it won't always be daily, but it'll be mostly daily. I'm putting on YouTube, so subscribe there. And then the podcast as well. You can find the podcast apps. It's The Better Human. That's more like 2 to 3 times a week. So get on YouTube if you want the full treatment, especially some of the current event stuff. Here's a couple quotes from a book. Well, it's actually book notes, which is amazing. Derek Sivers. I believe it's dereksivers.org or Derek.Sivers. Just Google it. He's got like 300 book notes where you can go in and see his book notes. Excellent way to kind of skim through really, really good books. In a typical day, you make hundreds of decisions: what to wear, what to eat, what to do with your free time, with whom to associate, and whom to avoid. On any given day, these decisions appear trivial, even inconsequential. Taken as a whole, they define who you were, who you are, and who you will become. And then here's another quote from that book. It's actually one of these books I think I've read on Audible. And what I like doing is going into book notes or books that I have read and rehashing some of these ideas. It's kind of a hack. Instead of having to read the whole book, it's like, bam, just get the highlights, right? I love book notes. Death is the end of a lifetime. Denial of death is a denial that time will end. If you deny that time ends, you are likely to treat time much differently than you would if you felt time to be scarce and of limited duration. If you imagine your life as infinite, you are unlikely to value time as more precious than gold and more likely to treat it as ordinary grains of sand on a beach. Ironically, denying death relieves anxiety and psychological stress, but it may also lead you to devalue life. So you may live life less fully. And then here's a few Twitters. Let's see. Michael Mouse here. The political conversation has gone from, here is why you should respect my rights, to, quote, I know you will do everything in your power to take my rights away, including coming from my children, so I am proceeding accordingly. He could not have said it better. This one's crazy. So apparently, this guy, Adam Davidson, you got to read this whole thing. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Here's the intro. I spent 2 days working on the Jeffrey Epstein podcast, Broken. I became close with many of his victims and learned a lot of stuff that, for annoying legal reasons, we can't publish. The experience has fundamentally reshaped how I see the world. TLDR. This is tweet 2. It's a tweet thread you should read. I know that rich and powerful men can get away with a lot. I didn't realize just how much they can get away with and just how much the entire system, courts, journalism, prosecutors, works inadvertently and deliberately to reinforce their impunity. You got to read this whole thing, but I mean, this is crazy. Like, to be able to say he can't publish this for legal reasons is utterly absurd. Someone should leak this. That's what I think. This one, oh gosh. It just pains me. From Kamala Harris, VP, who basically got her position because she was a woman and she was ethnic. It's just sad. It's pathetic. Like, and that's how you're going to destroy a country. Keep making about race and how people look and their background, and not making about whether they're competent or not, and watch very quickly as the United States of America runs itself off a cliff. We're already going that direction. I don't think anybody can stop it, but Jesus Christ. So this one is, no 86-year-old should fear for her safety at the grocery store. No 9-year-old should be afraid to go to school, and no 18-year-old should be able to buy weapons of war. But of course, 18-year-olds can go enlist and then be killed and kill others at the behest of bureaucrats sitting safely behind a desk in Washington. Yeah, that makes sense. And nobody should drive drunk. That was a good one. This is one that's crazy. Rob Reiner, he's such an idiot. I mean, every time I see a tweet from him, I should have just blocked him a long time ago, but I know it's going to be something good that I can cringe at. He says, this can't be stated enough. Donald Trump led a violent, deadly attack on the United States government. I trust he will be criminally indicted for that. See, this is what the left has to do when it has nothing else. It has to go and make mountains out of molehills, and it has to just try to latch onto every single little shred of anything they can talk about. If it was a deadly attack, and I assume he's talking about the January 7th or 16th or whatever, like, the thing is so absurd. I can't believe people still talk about it. if that was a deadly attack, where are the dead people? And if it was on the United States government, why was it just a few people in a building? So is that building the United States government? Was the army there? And then he's saying, I trust you will be criminally indicted for that. But, that's the thing. Like, we have free speech for a reason. And if some people take what someone says and they use it to commit an atrocity, that is upon the committer. It's not upon the person that said words. Words are words. They're air. Anybody can say anything. This idea that you should police that is so asinine. It's just another delusion that the left and politicians that feed the left and the public, they feed them. They convince them that we can make this world a utopia. We'll just control everything. But everything the government does, it makes worse. And then here's the final one I will leave you with. Gun Control Hall of Fame. Stalin took guns away from citizens in 1929 and then murdered 20 million of them once defenseless. Also, probably another like 40 to 60 million more starved to death through all the craziness they were doing with grain and shit. Like, it's disgusting. Unbelievable. And this is the problem with any state. You always have a willing Stalin or Hitler to come into power. You always have someone that's willing to suspend their human nature, to do things that they think are right. And millions can pay the ultimate price. Pot, I guess this is Indonesia, maybe, I'm not sure. Took away guns from his citizens in 1956 and murdered 2 million of them. Hitler took away guns from citizens in 1938 and then murdered 13 of them, including others in other countries. Took away guns from his citizens in 1935, this is Mao. Then murdered 20 million of them once defenseless. Yeah, and then we're sending money to Ukraine. They're giving the guns to people so that they can prolong a war, so that more young people can die. Again, at the behest of politicians sitting safely deep inside. And this is normal. This is accepted as normal. It makes me sick. All of it. And this is why you have to be a first principles thinker. If you are a first principles thinker, this is what I truly believe, and you truly understand history, and you understand economics, and you understand human nature, and you put these disparate understandings together, what you must come to, is that the state is wrong. It's not necessary. There are markets, and humans got along just fine before the state was ever there. It was not nasty, brutish, and short. Human lives were not that. All of the myth around the nasty, brutish, and short Hobbesian idea of human nature before the state, it's nonsense. He didn't know what the fuck he was talking about, okay? A lot of hunter-gatherers live very peaceful lives, and there's many areas where they're extremely peaceful, no war, etc. And there are some areas where there's war. Yeah, like there are things like that. But we live in an industrialized society. It's a completely different world. We don't need the state. To violate first principles thinking when it comes to politics and economics, it's like violating math or engineering. In the real world, if you violate math or engineering and you try building a bridge or a rocket or whatever, it just shit ain't gonna work for you, period. But the feedback mechanisms for violating politics and economics are so elusive, so wide-ranging, so complex, so unidentifiable or targetable that you can get away with really bad policies for a very long time. And that's what we've been doing since Nixon took us off the gold standard. Go to the website, WTF happened in 1971. How bad things have been getting since then, and how it's connected to the government controlling the money printer and being able to print money at will so they can fund things that they deem, they can fund whatever they want with no recourse whatsoever. They just make money at thin air. And what it's doing is it's stealing out of the pockets of every single dollar holder and earner on planet Earth. It is the most widely instituted form of slavery humanity's ever seen. That's what the United States Federal Reserve is. And when you understand that too, and you understand that politicians will always print money because they can. They will never balance a budget because they can't, especially when they can just print money. And they will always use power to their advantage because that's what power in human nature does. Power in human nature uses power to benefit itself, which is always at the expense of others. And over time, this is why all governments grow and centralize and grow and centralize. And then eventually they collapse because over time, as you grow and centralize, you come down. Because no human or group of humans can ever manage it all. It's too complex. There's too many moving parts. They always come down in the end. I just hope this time America comes down in a relatively soft landing so that millions upon millions of Americans, and then billions of people, because the American economy is that important to the world, I hope that they don't have to suffer and pay the price. But it's looking like they're going to and have to. So if you haven't already bought Bitcoin, guns and ammo, food, have an escape plan, have your passports, have what you need to have to be a sovereign citizen and be willing to leave the second it starts showing. Get out early. That's my advice. Get out early. So subscribe, get the Better Human newsletter over at thebetterhuman.co, and I'll see you in the next one.